The sun is shining, the ground is mostly thawed or soon will be, and once again our thoughts turn to our plants and our gardens. Hard to believe that we're here yet again, but like these jalapenos here, I'm more than ready to get back at it. The days and weeks before gardening fever hits the masses is when the true growers are already in the thick of it. Seeds, starters, soils, come on, we got this no problem. It may be a little early for some still, but that doesn't mean that there isn't anything to do. In case you missed it, here's volume 28 of the Garden Quickie, episodes 271 to 280. Enjoy. With another season under our belts, the best thing about gardening is that we get better and better at it every year. And this is due to two things: knowledge gained and better preparation. Learning from our mistakes most certainly helps us to level up, but prepping for the season during the downtimes is what's going to allow us to garden more efficiently come the spring. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we'll try our hardest to keep you prepared. Because today's episode is all about it. More specifically, 5 things we need to do this winter so that we can hit the ground running come next spring. Time short though, as you know it is, so let's dive in. For many plants, like these cauliflower here, it's one and done. And that's fine. It's what we signed up for. Seed, plant, grow, harvest. Easy formula, and it works like a charm. However, not all crops are like this, and some keep going year after year. This would be our perennials: strawberries, raspberries, and crops like these blueberries here. They've likely gone dormant for the winter, but they still need one thing from us before the ground completely freezes. And that would be water. Our perennial shrubs and bushes need to be well hydrated before all the moisture in the ground freezes and becomes unavailable. Yes, up above they do appear to be dormant, but below ground, those roots are still networking and are still active. And once all of our watering is done, we have to make sure to be diligent to shut down all of our irrigation for the winter. It's not something you likely think about before becoming a gardener, but exposed hoses, pipes, and even adapters that are filled with water, especially the pressurized kind, are going to burst. It can happen fast, and it'll do so without warning. Bleed off all your irrigation lines and shut off the main water supply until the warmer days of spring. As for our other hardware, the digging and cutting kind, now is the time to clean, dry, and restore them so that they can be in tip-top shape when it's their time to shine again. A 24-hour vinegar bath will lift off most rust spots, even the stubborn ones, and a quick oil will protect the metal and keep the springs and bolts from gaining back any of that rust. With just a little bit of care at the right time of the year, your garden tools should last a long time. Back out into the garden, we have our soils. Even though our plants and crops may be winding down or even done for the year, as organic growers, we're really just dirt farmers at heart. Although it may seem weird with the garden winding down and the growing at a minimum, now is the perfect time to amend and build up our soils. Even with the garden going dormant, replacing lost nutrients and organic matter right now can yield huge dividends later on. Compost and slow-release amendments like manure and alfalfa meal are usually applied now to allow them to infuse into the soil so that we're ready for planting come springtime. And finally, to protect those amendments and the soil that they're infused with, we've got one last thing to do on our list, and that's to mulch. Covering the soils in our gardens, especially after we amend them, is going to protect them from erosion, exposure, temperature swings, frost heaving, and, if you can believe it, even drought. Leaves, straw, grass clippings, bark mulch, chop and drop, whatever you got, you can use it. Go thicker for the lower zones and colder climates, and tuck that soil in nice and cozy for the winter. And after that, kick back and maybe check out a few more episodes of the Garden Quickie. When searching for inspiration for the best practices in our backyard garden, we need to look no further than nature herself. Especially in the fall as we begin to prepare for the onslaught of winter. Aside from our garlic, the spring bulbs, and a few berry perennials, the gardens in temperate regions are about to be shut down for at least 2 to 4 months. However, while our crops won't actively be producing at this time, that doesn't mean that the garden itself is inactive. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome back to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, just like this cold weather broccoli here, and just like your gardens, we never stop. Because today's episode is all about winter in the garden, specifically mulching, and why it's so important. I've got 3 reasons today, but time's short as you know it is, so let's dive in. Containers, raised beds, or plots, mulching has become ubiquitous with good gardening practice. And for good reason. Many reasons, in fact, especially in the winter. Today, though, we're only going to focus on 3. And the first of those is the biggie, erosion. Exposed soil at a time of the year when precipitation is likely at its highest, well, that's a recipe for disaster. Rain pelting down incessantly on bare soil changes its structure, fertility, and viability as a medium to grow and support plants. Mulch breaks up this constant bombardment and evenly distributes the moisture down into the soil profile efficiently and safely. Protection is the name of the game, and mulch is the best at it. Next up, we've got exposure, and this one can be just as important. No matter the temperature, exposed soil can still dry out. Not to mention, it'll freeze easier and just generally lose life. Microbes and the good bacteria will be forced to go further down seeking refuge, making the soil less fertile and less functional. Both key things that are necessary to supporting our favorite crops at a high level. And lastly, mulch, no matter what material you're using, is going to protect that soil from those wild temperature swings. The daily freeze-thaw action of exposed soil is far worse than just being frozen or just being thawed. Consistent daily temperatures that don't fluctuate in a flash is going to make for healthier soil that keeps getting better and better every year. And speaking of better and better, after you mulch, make sure to check out more episodes of the Garden Quickie. These plants may look small and start from humble beginnings, but play our cards right, and this broccoli here might just give us a legendary harvest, even when contained. As a card-carrying, cool weather-loving member of the brassica family, broccoli has a difficulty level somewhere between kale and Brussels sprouts. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we've got your container broccoli covered. Because today's episode is all about it. Specifically, 3 things you can do for your container broccoli to make sure you get the most out of it. Time short though, as you know it is, so let's dive in. For a little over half its life, broccoli grows much like a simple kale plant. And while the whole plant is edible, it's the immature flower buds that make up the broccoli head that we're really after. To get the broccoli plants large enough to give us that head, we would normally give them 1 to 2 feet of space in the garden. Growing in containers, though, that means a minimum of 5 gallons. Too small, and the roots won't network enough to support that full broccoli head. Too large, though, and now we're just wasting space and soil because with these guys, it's just 1 plant per pot. 5 to 7 gallon, medium height, or even squat is what we aim for. Planting depth is also going to have an effect on the success of your container broccoli. Too shallow, and you run the risk of exposing roots and having the plant grow too tall and lanky and having anchor issues. Too deep though, and you'll stress the plant and the lower leaves out, creating even more issues. The easiest way to get it right is to simply plant to the height of the existing root collar. That's where the stem meets the soil. And while we can direct seed, yes, broccoli is best grown from starter plants. Otherwise, we run the risk of ruining its timing. This is because the goal with broccoli is to get it to mature before the high temperatures of summer arrive or after. It's not that the plants can't take and grow in the heat, they're just fine. It's that we don't want to harvest in it. So, get your broccoli plants into the ground in the early spring right after it thaws, or again in the late summer about 8 weeks before your first fall frost. Timing is truly key in turning this from a tricky crop into an easy one. So after you get them planted, you'll be able to kick back, relax, and check out more episodes of the Garden Quickie. In gardening, especially as you go bigger, efficiency is king, and we always try to eliminate the waste. Sometimes, though, there's a benefit to being frivolous. Purposeful overseeding of plug and sealing trays is actually a strategy that has some distinct advantages. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, the one thing we won't waste is your time. Which brings us to the topic of today's episode, seeding. Specifically, 3 distinct benefits of overseeding. Time short though, as you know it is, so let's dive in. In an ideal world of propagation, there's 1 perfect seed per cell, resulting in 1 perfect plant. That's the perfect outcome. In reality though, that's rarely the case, even with premium seeds planted in premium conditions. 100% seed viability and germination simply doesn't exist. It's why plants create so many seeds. We don't know the outcome of germination percentage until after the seeds have sprouted. Space, soil, and of course our time are infinitely more expensive than seeds. So, overseeding guarantees us a germination so that we don't miss a beat. And speaking of that space, not everyone has enough of it to spare. When room to grow is at a premium and you've got more seeds than there is available space, overseeding and multi-seeding the cells and plugs is a viable strategy. Many times, plugs and established seedings are moved onto larger pots as a transition stage before the actual planting out in the garden. Tomatoes, peppers, and even onions don't mind at all having their roots disturbed and being pulled apart. Multi-seeding your trays allows you to get away with magnitudes less space, yet still enjoy the same yields. It doesn't work for all crops, but for those that it does, it's really effective. And finally, the more we seed, the more chance we have to grow the best crops. Being able to choose from the strongest, most advanced specimens means more quality control over what actually makes it out into the garden. Better seedlings, better plants, better yields. Know what else will give you those better yields? Checking out more episodes of the Garden Quickie. One of the sad facts of life is that as we get older, we get less effective. Unfortunately, the exact same thing happens with our seeds. As age goes up, viability goes down. This much we know. In the world of seeds, age isn't just a number, it's a countdown. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome back to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we're always viable. Because today's episode is all about those seeds. Specifically, just how long do they last for before they expire? Time's short though, as you know it is, so let's dive in. Seed viability is always expressed as a percentage of seeds that germinate within a given batch. If you have, say, 100 Swiss chard seeds and it has a 70% viability rate, you would expect 70 or more of those seeds to germinate. Unfortunately, we can't really tell what that viability rate is until after the batch has been germinated. As well, beyond variety and species, there's 3 things that affect how long seeds last for: light, temperature, and the biggie, moisture. Seeds kept in cool, dark, dry places will always last much longer than seeds that aren't. But that still doesn't answer the question, how long do they last for? As with most things in gardening, it all depends on the variety and plant that you're growing. Some seeds are only considered viable for 1, maybe 2 years. Others for a few more years than that, while some can last upwards of a decade or more. These would be the averages, and of course for seeds that were stored in optimal conditions. There's always going to be outliers and extreme variation. Of course, you can have onion or corn seeds sprout after 5+ years. That's not abnormal. The number simply represents the average typical lifespan where you can expect a reasonable viability. Keep your seeds cool, dark, and most importantly secure and dry, and you'll be surprised at just how long they last, longer than they're rated for. And after that, make sure to check out more episodes of the Garden Quickie. After a break of a few months, our favorite time of year is almost upon us. That's right, we're talking about seed starting. And as exciting as it is, how do we know when it's actually time to start? Starting our seeds early indoors has a laundry list of benefits. But starting them too early, well, that can cause us some headaches. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we're nothing if not timely. And today's episode is all about those seeds. Specifically, if we're looking to get a head start early, when is the best time to plant our seeds indoors? Time short though, as you know it is, so let's dive in. With modern grow lights and heat mats, seeds can literally be started in any month of the year. Unlike planting outside in the garden that is purely dictated by temperature and weather, starting seeds early indoors requires patience and fairly specific timing. Too early, And we run the risk of our young plants being ready to go outside before the outside is ready to accept them. Too late, however, and the risk then becomes negating all of those benefits of early seed starting in the first place. The timing is super simple. The issue is, it's different for everyone. Pretty much every crop that's worth starting early indoors is best planted about 6 to 8 weeks before you intend to plant it outside. This is simply the ideal amount of time to get most plants to their ideal level of growth for transplanting. The problem is, not everyone plants outside at the same time. Most crops are planted outside on or within 2 weeks of your last spring frost date. This date and timing on the calendar is different for every zone and every climate. You simply have to look it up for your area. Count backwards from that date 8 weeks or so, and you know it's time to get your seeds started. Easy peasy. Almost as easy as checking out more episodes of the Garden Quickie. Planning and planting a new garden all starts with a seed of a thought with some imagination sprinkled in. It also starts with planting some actual seeds. Make no mistake, our gardening success begins and ends with our ability to sprout our favorite crops. For most seeds, it's really a matter of just adding water. But with seed prices reaching ridiculous levels and our time extremely valuable, maximizing our germination rates is more important than ever. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome back to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we take our seeds super seriously. Because today's episode is all about them. Specifically, 3 ways for you to maximize your germination results this season. Time short though, as you know it is, so let's dive in. If your gardening season all starts with seeds and germination, then sprouting said seeds all starts with the soil. The right soil is key because it's the environment around the seeds that actually causes them to germinate. Specifically, the right soil is going to be loose, airy, full of organic matter, retain moisture but still drain, and be free of impediments. You can buy proper seeding soil, or you can simply make it yourself. Either way, seeds lie dormant, suspended in animation, until the environment changes. Namely, moisture and heat. While water alone will trigger germination, it's the right temperature that perfects it. Like we said, seeds only need moisture to sprout, utilizing a process known as imbibition. Once dry seeds swollen with moisture begin to rupture, crack, and out comes that first root radical looking for the soil. Yes, water is the sole cause of this germination, but it's most efficient at the right temperatures. For the majority of seeds, this is right around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Maintain that temperature either through room controls, grow lights, or a seeding heat mat, and watch your viability rates not only go up, but also the consistency and evenness of your sprouting. Focus on the right timing in the late winter, early spring, the right planting depth to match the crop, and those 3 seeding tips that we just mentioned, and you'll have your best start to the year yet. Easy stuff. Almost as easy as checking out more episodes of the Garden Quickie. Besides being tiny miracle vessels that house dormant plants just waiting to spring into action for the first time, seeds also contain everything that those young plants, in this case peppers, need to begin their life in those delicate first few moments. Peppers, though, are a perpetually hungry, if not needy crop. Seeds and seeding soil soon runs out of goodness, And as those young pepper plants move forward to the eventual planting outside, the last thing we want them to do is to starve and then stall. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we'll never let any crop go hungry. And today's episode is all about those peppers. Specifically, when is it the right time to give them their first feeding? Time short though, as you know it is, so let's dive in. Pepper plants, like most of the crops we grow, spring to life initially with a single set of leaf-like appendages. While not true photosynthesizing foliage, these seed leaves appear every time, marking the onset of germination. Known botanically as cotyledons, these are embryonic seed leaves that actually do contain chlorophyll and can even photosynthesize, albeit crudely. They don't last forever and give rise to the actual true foliage of the plant, and this is the cotyledon's clue to wither off and die. This is also our telltale signal to begin feeding our young peppers. Once one set of true leaves appears, definitely after 2 sets, your young pepper plants will begin actively searching for nutrients. At this point, we can either choose to fertilize our young peppers or simply move them on to larger pots with more soil and thus a few more nutrients. Either way, the developing pepper seedlings need a low dose, balanced mix, likely 1/4 to 1/2 strength if you're using a commercial blend. The goal is to initially feed them slow and keep the NPK balanced. Those are the 3 numbers on the front of any fertilizer label. Right now, it's all about shoot and root growth, so equal parts nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium should be the goal. Go ahead and feed every 2 weeks for the duration of indoor growing. And in between that, make sure to check out more episodes of the Garden Quickie. You did everything right, everything you were supposed to do. And germination, the first step in the process, went off without a hiccup. Why then are your pepper seedlings turning purple? Unlike people, pepper plants tell us exactly how they're feeling with no strings attached and no hidden agendas. They simply react to their environment, and their responses tell us everything. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we'll never shut you out. Because today is all about those peppers. Specifically, why do the seedlings sometimes turn purple in the first months of life? Time short though, as you know it is, so let's dive in. First off, purple foliage on your young pepper seedlings is not a disease. It won't kill them, and it is completely fixable as well as reversible. 3 things can cause it, 2 of them related, and 1 not. Let's start with that one first. Plants need light to grow, and lots of it, especially peppers, and especially young peppers. But the very lights that we use to grow the plants can be the same lights that cause the issue. High-intensity LEDs that skew too far in the blue spectrum can cause your pepper plants to turn purple. It goes away with more full spectrums of light or simply when you plant your peppers out in the garden. The other 2 are temperature and nutrients, and more often than not, those 2 things are correlated. Pepper foliage that has turned purple gives us an indication that it's lacking phosphorus. It's just like when leaves turn yellow when there's not enough nitrogen. When phosphorus levels are too low, stressed out pepper leaves produce too much anthocyanin, which causes the purple streaking and blotches you see here. Related to that, though, is temperature. Pepper plants lack the ability to either uptake phosphorus or process it properly when the temperatures are too low. Below 65 degrees Fahrenheit, young pepper leaves tend to turn purple, indicating to us that they are low in phosphorus. The leaves turn purple either because the soil is lacking in phosphorus or the temperatures are too low for the plants to properly use and process it. It's a harmless temporary response, but left to endure is most certainly going to result in poorer yields. Know what else is going to result in poorer yields? Missing the next episode of the Garden Quickie. Although they can be planted in 3 different ways and all be successful, by far the best way to grow bulb onions is to plant them from starters or plugs. Oddly enough, though, growing onions from homemade starter plants is the root cause of most of the frustration that growers get when trying to grow actual bulbs. That frustration ends today. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we make gardening less hard. And today's episode is all about those onions. Specifically, the best way to create the ultimate onion starter plants. Time's short though, as you know it is, so let's dive in. Growing onion starters and plugs is not difficult, and all the parameters are as you'd expect. The hard part isn't the germination or even getting these guys to grow big and strong. For most growers, this isn't the issue. Like tomatoes and peppers, creating onion starts is fairly straightforward. Why then are so many people having so many problems getting to an actual bulb harvest? Well, the answer to that is that it's almost always variety and lighting. And those two things are directly connected. Let me explain. Onions, in all their colors and varieties, come in 3 main types: long day, short day, and intermediate. These 3 categories refer to the length of daylight hours that are needed to trigger bulb formation. Long day takes the longest, short day is the shortest, and intermediate, of course, is in between. So this means where you're growing in the world is going to dictate what type of onion you need to plant. The closer you get down to the equator, the more even your day-night cycle is, approaching that 12 hours of light and 12 hours of dark. In that case, short day onions are going to be your best fit. Further north, say above 47 degrees latitude, the days get progressively longer as we exit spring, and that's what the long day onions look for to trigger their bulbs. Intermediate onions can kind of straddle in between the two. The key is to not only grow the right onion variety, but to also not give those onion starts the light they need to start triggering bulb formation until after they're planted out in the garden. Solve those 2 things and you'll get onion bulbs every time. Easy peasy. Almost as easy as checking out the next episode of the Garden Quickie. Thanks for watching, guys. And hey, if Garden Quickies are your thing, make sure to subscribe and click on this playlist here as we explore and solve more growing issues in 2 minutes or less.